Welcome to HMS Gannet Imperial Patrol duties. By the late 19th century, Britain needed small, long-range, economical warships to maintain presence across the empire. Gannet's class, the Dotterel/Osprey sloops, were designed to patrol vast ocean regions, protect trade routes, and act as visible symbols of British authority. Anti-slavery operations. Although the Atlantic slave trade had been largely suppressed by the 1870s, slavery and piracy persisted in other regions. Ships like Gannet were built to continue these suppression duties, especially in the Red Sea and Indian Ocean. Surveying and charting, the Victorian Navy was heavily involved in hydrographic surveying. Smaller sloops were ideal for this work, and Gannet was intended to contribute to charting poorly mapped waters across the empire. Made Gannet suitable for this roll composite construction, iron frame plus teak planking, for durability and long deployment, steam plus sail propulsion for global range and independence, from coaling stations moderate armament suited to policing, not fleet battle shallow draft, enabling access to smaller colonial ports. In essence, HMS Gannet was built as a Victorian imperial workhorse. A versatile sloop able to patrol, survey, protect trade, suppress slavery, and respond to crises across the world's oceans. She embodied the Royal Navy's shift from fleet warfare to global policing during the late 19th century. Concise takeaway: HMS Gannet's service on the Pacific Station, 1879 to 1888, was a classic example of Victorian naval diplomacy. Long patrols, anti-slavery enforcement, protection of British subjects, quiet crisis management, and constant show-the-flag presence across an ocean the size of an empire. Pacific Station, what it was. The Pacific Station stretched from British Columbia to Chile, across to the South Pacific Islands. It was one of the Royal Navy's most far-flung commands, responsible for protecting British trade routes, supporting consular officials, intervening in colonial disputes, surveying and charting poorly mapped waters, maintaining a visible British presence. Gannet was exactly the sort of composite sloop built for this world-spanning role. Gannet served North Pacific patrols, spent long periods off British Columbia, Vancouver Island and the Aleutians, monitoring American, Russian and local political tensions. Shallow draft let her enter small harbors where larger cruisers could not. American diplomacy, Gannet visited Peru, Chile and Ecuador during a period of regional instability, including the War of the Pacific. Her presence reassured British merchants and acted as a stabilizing influence. In the Pacific Islands, she made repeated cruises through the Society Islands, Samoa and Tonga, supporting consuls, investigating local disputes, and protecting British missionaries and traders. What Gannet actually did: 1. Anti-slavery and anti-blackbirding patrols. Although the Atlantic trade had declined, blackbirding, the kidnapping of Pacific Islanders for forced labor, remained a major problem. Gannet inspected suspicious vessels, landed shore parties, and escorted liberated islanders home. 2. Protecting British subjects and trade, she intervened in disputes involving British merchants, ensured safe passage for shipping, and acted as a mobile consulate in regions with little formal British administration. 3. Surveying and hydrographic work. Gannet's officers conducted charting in poorly mapped areas of the North Pacific and South Pacific archipelagos, contributing to Admiralty charts still recognizable today. Life aboard during Pacific service. Gannet's Pacific years were defined by long, monotonous patrols broken by sudden diplomatic crises, extreme weather, fog and cold in the north, blistering heat in the south, frequent coaling stops. Though her sails gave her independent crew interactions with indigenous communities, often respectful and mutually curious, a sense of isolation. Months without contact with home, relying on the ship as a self-contained world. Why her Pacific service mattered. Gannet's work helped to maintain Britain's influence across a region where a single warship could shape events simply by being present. She was part of the quiet machinery of empire, diplomacy, deterrence, and humanitarian action rather than battle. HMS Gannet, a South Pacific cruise, Auckland, Samoa, Tonga, Fiji, Tahiti, Valparaiso, circa mid-1880s, during her Pacific station service, day 1 to 3, Auckland. Taking leave of the Empire, the cruise begins with Gannet moored at Auckland, the Royal Navy's principal South Pacific base. Stores taken aboard, salt beef, ship's biscuit, coal, medical supplies. Mail arrives from home, the last the crew will see for weeks. Maori traders visit the ship, selling fruit and carved trinkets. His company enjoys a final evening ashore, pubs, music, letters posted. At dawn on day 3, Gannet slips her moorings. Sails are set. The Pacific opens before her. Day 4 to 10. The open heat, routine, and sudden beauty. South Pacific is vast, empty, and hypnotic. Morning, holy stoning the deck, sail drill, gunnery practice. Afternoon, navigation lessons, chart corrections, cleaning weapons. Evening, the ship's band plays fiddle and concertina on the quarterdeck. Flying fish skitter across the bow. The water glows cobalt. The heat is relentless. 11 to 15, Samoa diplomacy in a divided archipelago Samoa in the 1880s is politically volatile. Rival chiefs, German influence, American interest. Gannet anchors in Apia Harbour. What she does here, meets the British consul. Hosts Samoan chiefs aboard for negotiations, sends a landing party to investigate reports of blackbirding, provides medical aid after a storm damages coastal villages. The crew trade with locals, coconuts, woven mats, carved clubs. A Samoan choir sings aboard one evening. The crew falls silent, moved. Day 16 to 20, Tonga ceremony and curiosity. Tonga is more stable, ruled by King George Tupou I. Gannet arrives at Nuku'alofa to conduct courtesy visits. A royal delegation boards the ship. A ceremonial exchange of gifts takes place. The ship fires a salute. The Tongan battery answers. Officers attend a feast ashore, roast pig, taro kava. Boat is gifted to the ship as a mascot. It immediately becomes a menace, eating signal flags and chasing the ship's cat. Day 21 to 28, Fiji storms, surveying, and a rescue. Fiji group is poorly charted. Gannet's officers conduct hydrographic work, events of the week. A tropical squall hits rain like sheets of iron. The ship rolls heavily, sails reefed, steam raised. A coastal trading schooner is sighted dismasted. Gannet launches her cutter and rescues the crew. Surveying continues, soundings taken, reefs charted, bearings fixed. These charts will later appear in Admiralty publications. Day 29 to 35, Tahiti. A quiet interlude. Tahiti is a favorite posting. Calm seas, friendly French officials, abundant fresh food. The crew enjoy fruit markets swimming from the ship. Evenings ashore with music and dancing, repairs to rigging and hull planking. A French corvette anchors nearby. The two ships exchange visits, comparing notes on Pacific politics. A sailor writes, "Tahiti is paradise, but we are only ever passing through." 36 to 45. The long leg to South America. The cruise turns eastward toward Valparaiso, Chile. This is the hardest stretch. Weeks without land, sails constantly trimmed for shifting winds, coal carefully rationed. Flying fish, dolphins, and occasional whales sighted. The monotony broken by Sunday divine service and evening storytelling. The Pacific feels infinite. 46 to 50. Valparaiso. The edge of the station. Valparaiso is bustling, cosmopolitan, and politically tense during the War of the Pacific era. Its duties: protect British merchants, carry dispatches for the consul, host receptions for local dignitaries, refit and take on fresh provisions. The crew enjoy shore leave, cafes, theatres, and the novelty of cold beer. This cruise represents a South Pacific cruise aboard HMS Gannet. Was diplomacy by presence, humanitarian aid, anti-slavery enforcement, surveying and charting, imperial reassurance, endless ocean, sudden crises, and moments of beauty. It was the quiet, constant work of a Victorian sloop, shaping events not through battle, but through being there. Sloop of war, not a man of war. During the 18th and 19th centuries, a sloop of war was a warship of the Royal Navy, with a single gun deck that carried up to 18 guns. The rating system of the Royal Navy covered all vessels with 20 or more guns. Thus, the term encompassed all unrated warships, including gun brigs and cutters. In technical terms, even the more specialized bomb vessels and fireships were classed by the Royal Navy as sloops of war, and in practice these were employed in the role of a sloop of war when not carrying out their specialized functions. 1800 illustration of the Royal Navy brig sloop HMS Speedy. In World War I and World War II, the Royal Navy reused the term sloop for specialized convoy defense vessels, including the Flower class of the First World War and the highly successful Black Swan class of the Second World War, with anti-aircraft and anti-submarine capabilities. They performed similar duties to the destroyer escorts of the United States Navy, and also performed similar duties to the smaller corvettes of the Royal Navy. Sloop of war was quite different from a civilian or mercantile sloop, which was a general term for a single-masted vessel rigged in a way that would today be called a gaff cutter, but usually without the square topsails then carried by cutter-rigged vessels, though some sloops of that type did serve in the 18th century British Royal Navy, particularly on the Great Lakes of North America. The first half of the 18th century, most naval sloops were two-masted vessels, usually carrying a ketch or a snow rig. A ketch had main and mizzen masts, but no foremast. A snow had a foremast and a mainmast immediately abaft, which a small subsidiary mast was fastened, on which the spanker was set. Ship sloop, the first three-masted, that is, ship-rigged sloops appeared during the 1740s, and from the mid-1750s, most new sloops were built with a three-masted ship rig. The third mast afforded the sloop greater mobility and the ability to back sail. Sloop. In the 1770s, the two-masted sloop reappeared in a new guise as the brig sloop, the successor to the former snow sloops. Brig sloops had two masts, while ship sloops continued to have three, since a brig is a two-masted, square-rigged vessel, and a ship is a square rigger with three or more masts, though never more than three in that period. In the Napoleonic period, Britain built huge numbers of brig sloops of the cruiser class, 18 guns, and the Cherokee class, 10 guns. The brig rig was economical of manpower important given Britain's chronic shortfall in trained seamen relative to the demands of the wartime fleet. When armed with carronades, 32-pounders in the cruiser class, 18-pounders in the Cherokee class, they had the highest ratio of firepower to tonnage of any ships in the Royal Navy, albeit within the short range of the carronade. The carronades also used much less manpower than the long guns normally used to arm frigates. Consequently, the cruiser class were often used as cheaper and more economical substitutes for frigates, in situations where the frigate's high cruising endurance was not essential.